Have you ever really thought about how your local public school gets its money? I mean, it can feel like a total black box, right? A system so complicated you almost think it's designed to be confusing. But what if that system isn't just complicated? What if it's also deeply, deeply unequal? Okay, let's get into it because what we're about to unpack affects literally millions of students all across California. It really all boils down to this one question. How on earth is it possible that in the very same state, some school districts are just swimming in cash, while others, sometimes just a few miles down the road, are staring at financial collapse? We're going to see how a kid's education can pretty much depend entirely on where their family happens to live. So, to really understand this lottery system, let's zoom in on a real-world example. We're talking about the Fremont Unified School District, smack dab in the middle of Silicon Valley. For them, this isn't theoretical. They are living this crisis every single day. Okay, now look at this chart. That downward trend line, that is scary stuff. This shows Fremont's financial reserves, basically their emergency savings. And you can just see it dropping and dropping year after year. By 2028, it's projected to hit less than 1%, which is way below the 3% minimum the state requires. This isn't just a tough budget year. This is the road to going broke. And this number right here, this is the heart of the problem, a $12.2 million structural deficit. That word structural is so important. This isn't a one-time thing. It's a hole in the budget that shows up every single year, and it just keeps getting deeper. So what exactly is deficit spending? Well, it's pretty simple, and it's just as bad as it sounds. It means Fremont Unified is spending every penny it gets from the state and then has to pull an extra $12 million out of its savings just to pay the bills for the school year. You can only do that for so long before the savings account hits zero. And what happens if they do run out of money? The consequences are, well, they're severe. We're talking about a state takeover. The local school board gets stripped of its power. A state administrator comes in and starts making massive cuts to programs, to staff, and potentially even closing schools. To top it all off, the district is stuck with a huge state loan that could take 20 years to pay back. It's a total loss of local control. So you might be thinking, wow, this must be happening all over the place, right? Wrong. And this is where the story gets really interesting. This problem reveals that there are basically two completely different education systems running side by side in California. Now, Fremont is definitely not alone in this struggle. Just look at this list. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose. Districts up and down the state, mostly in really expensive areas, are slashing tens of millions from their budgets. It's a huge crisis. But, and this is a big but, it's not happening to everyone. This quote right here is the key to the whole thing. While all those other districts are cutting back, there's this whole other group of districts, they're called community-funded or basic aid, that aren't making any cuts. Zero. They're totally fine financially. So how is that even possible? This slide just lays out the massive divide perfectly. On one side, you've got districts like Fremont that are state-funded. They basically get a minimum allowance from the state. But on the other side, you have community-funded districts like, say, Palo Alto or Woodside. Their local property taxes are so high, they generate way more money than the state minimum. The result? They have thousands more to spend on each student and can pay their teachers an average of $27,000 more a year. That is a huge difference. So what's causing this giant gap? It's not just random chance. It is built right into the system California uses to fund its schools. The system is called the Local Control Funding Formula, or LCFF for short. Now, the LCFF was actually created with good intentions. The idea was to give local districts more control and to send extra money to help students with greater needs. But as we're about to see, the way this formula works in the real world, well, it has some pretty serious unintended consequences. Under the LCFF, you can basically think of districts being sorted into three buckets. Up at the top, you've got the community-funded districts, just flush with local property tax money. Then you have concentration districts. They get extra state money because a lot of their students, over 55%, are low-income or English learners. And then you've got districts like Fremont. They're called moderate districts, and they're just stuck in the middle with less funding. And this chart just shows it all so clearly. On the far right, in blue, you see those wealthy community-funded districts like Palo Alto. On the left, also in blue, are the concentration districts like Oakland that get that extra help. And right there in that red valley in the middle, that's Fremont. See, they're not rich enough to be community funded, but they don't have enough high-needs students to get the extra state funding. They are caught in a total funding desert. The problem goes even deeper, though. The formula's one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't work in a state as huge and diverse as California. It creates what you might call a high cost of uniformity. Here are the 3 main reasons this whole system feels so broken. First, the cost of living adjustment from the state is the same for every district. That's insane, right? $1 in Fremont, in the super expensive Bay Area, is treated exactly the same as $1 in a much cheaper part of the state. Second, that 55% cutoff for getting extra funding, it's completely arbitrary. Fremont is just under that line, so they miss out on millions. And finally, since 90% of their budget goes to paying staff, they have to try and compete for teachers with their richer neighbors, but they're doing it with way, way less money.
So yeah, the system is broken. But it is not a lost cause. There are people working on this, and districts like Fremont have pointed out some clear, common-sense steps that could lead to a much fairer system for every single student.
All right, here are the big 3 ideas on the table. First, just fix the LCFF formula itself to make it more balanced. Second, and this one is huge, create a regional cost of living adjustment so that funding actually reflects what things cost in different parts of California. And third, make it a little easier for communities to help themselves by lowering the voting requirement to pass a local parcel tax from a super high 2/3 majority down to 55%. And that brings us right back to where we started. The system we have now creates a world of haves and have-nots, where the quality of a kid's education can literally be decided by their home address. So the real question we all have to ask ourselves is this: should a student's zip code really be their destiny?